I always believed secrets announce themselves quietly through late-night sighs, half smiles, or the subtle way someone avoids your eyes. But that night, the truth didn't whisper. It screamed at me from the bright screen of my husband's phone. Before we continue, tell me your city and age so I can tailor the next chapters for your audience. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. I remember the sound first, the steady clicking of keys as my husband, Daniel, worked at the dining table. He had been absorbed in his laptop for hours, hunched forward, brows furrowed, one hand constantly tugging at the sleeve of his white shirt. He was finishing a report for work, something urgent, something impossible to postpone, as he liked to say. Meanwhile, I wandered around the apartment, rearranging pillows, folding laundry that didn't need folding, pretending to be busy. In reality, my eyes kept drifting back to him. Something about the last few weeks felt off. I couldn't explain it. It was like living with a stranger wearing my husband's skin. His voice was the same, his face familiar, but the warmth behind it, missing. As if he had taken a piece of himself somewhere I couldn't follow. He didn't cheat on me, at least. That's what I told myself. Cheating was loud, obvious, messy. Daniel wasn't messy. Daniel was structure, routine, precision. He ironed his shirts in order of color. He set reminders on his phone to water the plants. He used coasters even on our cheapest, most beat-up furniture. A man like that doesn't risk everything for a secret. At least, that's what I thought then. The moment everything changed was so small, so ordinary that I wouldn't even remember it if not for the storm it unleashed. His phone buzzed, one single vibration on the table next to his elbow. "Can you get that?" he said without looking up. "It might be the client." He didn't even glance at me. No hesitation, no worry. And that, ironically, is what made me trust him enough to pick up the phone. I walked over casually, almost bored, wiping my hands on my jeans. The screen was still glowing, a notification banner stretched across the top. At first, my brain didn't fully process it. Does your wife suspect anything? For a second, my thoughts didn't connect. It was like reading a sentence in a foreign language. You know the words, but they don't form meaning. I just stared at it. Does your wife suspect anything? The room suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker. My heartbeat slowed, then quickened, then stumbled like it forgot how to beat at all. My fingers went cold, the kind of cold that crawls from your skin straight into your bones. I looked at Daniel, still typing, still focused, still oblivious. Everything inside me split cleanly into two. One half of me wanted to drop the phone, walk away, pretend I hadn't seen anything, preserve the illusion, protect myself. The other half, hotter, sharper, wanted to dig, uncover, expose, rip every lie into daylight. Guess which half won? My hand moved without me thinking. I swiped the notification open. Messenger, a contact saved under the name Eli. No last name. A gray circle where a profile picture should be. The conversation thread empty. Everything before that one message had been deleted. Of course. "Who's Eli?" I asked, though my voice barely came out. It sounded like someone else's voice, thin, quiet, trembling, but trying not to. Daniel didn't look up. "One of the people from the report," he said. "Why? A lie. Too quick, too smooth. A man doesn't answer that fast unless he's rehearsed the line in his head." I felt a tingling in my fingers, a shaking that I tried to hide. My mind raced, stacking pieces together, building a picture I didn't want to see. Deleted messages, strange behavior for weeks, the coldness, the excuses, late nights, secretive phone habits. He worked in finance. Eli didn't sound like a client. But more importantly, clients don't ask if your wife suspects something. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Every rational voice inside me whispered, Don't open this door. Once you do, you can't close it again." But rational voices are weak when emotions are screaming. I typed before I could talk myself out of it. "She does now." I hit send. The tiny delivered checkmark appeared instantly. A heartbeat later, it switched to seen. Someone was actively watching, waiting, expecting him, not me, to reply. My stomach twisted. The room felt tilted. Even the soft hum of the refrigerator sounded hostile. Behind me, Daniel's typing stopped. "What was that?" he asked, suspicious now, finally turning his head. I said nothing at first. I just held his phone in the air, the message still visible. I watched the color drain from his face. First confusion, then something darker. Not guilt exactly. Fear. He stood up slowly, like someone approaching a dangerous animal. "Give me the phone." His voice was low, calm, but too controlled, too careful. "Who is asking if I suspect something?" I asked, the words cracking despite my best effort. He flinched, not visibly, but I felt it. Something in him tightened. "It's work-related," he insisted. "You're misunderstanding." "Am I?" I asked. My hand shook harder. My breath came in uneven gasps that burned my throat. "Then explain it." "I can't," he murmured. "Not like this." Not like this. The kind of phrase a person uses when they're negotiating with bombs. The phone buzzed again in my hand. Another message from Eli. "Daniel, what happened?" I stared at it, then at him. He stepped closer. I stepped back. "Tell me who this is," I said quietly. "Tell me the truth." His eyes flicked to the phone, then to me. His jaw clenched. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Words hovered behind his lips, but he couldn't push them out. That was the moment I knew. Whatever he was hiding, it wasn't small, and it wasn't innocent. I turned the screen toward him one more time. The 3 messages lined up like bullets. "Does your wife suspect anything?" "She does now." "Daniel, what happened?" He swallowed hard. "Sit down," he said finally, voice shaking for the first time. "There's something I need to tell you." And in that moment, before he even began, I understood. Whatever truth was coming next, I was not prepared for it. The next morning, the apartment felt different. The sunlight spilling through the blinds didn't comfort me. It mocked me. It lit up every corner I had ignored, every quiet lie I had trusted, every small smile that had masked the unknown. Daniel left for work before I could say anything more, leaving me alone with his phone, his messages, and my racing thoughts. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. The 3 messages blinked innocently now, but I knew better. I couldn't go back. Whatever trust I had in him had cracked, and I could feel it spreading through every part of my life like water through a fault line. I started small, carefully. The first step was observation. I watched him over breakfast, noting the way he drank his coffee with a nervous edge, how he hummed softly when he thought I wasn't looking, how he checked his phone almost instinctively even when there was no notification. None of it seemed like much, but I had seen enough to know that these tiny cracks often hide the biggest truths. I decided to check his laptop, not to invade privacy for the sake of it, but to follow the breadcrumbs he had left unintentionally. His browser history was cleared. Every application he might have used to communicate was locked behind passwords he hadn't shared with me. That in itself was enough to set off alarms. Daniel wasn't careless with his work, and he wasn't careless with me, or so I had thought. Then I remembered the small things. A deleted email here, a message that disappeared faster than I could read it there. The unfamiliar receipts in his wallet. The sudden late nights that started as urgent reports, but ended in excuses too vague to accept. Everything clicked together now. The puzzle had always been there. I had just ignored the missing pieces. I needed more. I needed facts. I started recording, quietly keeping notes in a small notebook I carried everywhere. Every time he left the room, I jotted down what he did, who he called, how long he was gone. I tried to stay calm, rational even. I reminded myself, this wasn't paranoia. This was evidence gathering. I was seeking truth, not revenge. A week passed, and the pieces started to form a pattern. Daniel's coworker, Eli, wasn't just a casual friend or colleague. The messages were too personal, too timely, too knowing. They referenced things only someone in our inner circle could know. And Daniel's reactions to the phone? Avoidance, tight control, subtle fear. Something was happening that I wasn't meant to see. Then came the discovery that shook me more than the messages. I was doing laundry when I found a small, folded note in the pocket of a coat he hadn't worn in months. It was neatly written, careful, almost intimate. The words weren't harsh or accusatory. They were affectionate, teasing, possessive. My hands shook as I unfolded it. "Can't wait to see you tonight," it said. "I miss your smile, your laugh. Just don't let her know." I read it 3 times, then 4. My vision blurred, my stomach twisted. My world was splitting open and I was tumbling through the cracks. This wasn't work. This wasn't casual. This was deliberate, hidden, secret. I confronted him that evening, my voice trembling but firm. "Daniel," I said, holding the note between us like a weapon, "explain this." His face paled. He swallowed hard. He didn't deny it at first. Instead, he looked down, trying to gather words like scattered leaves in a storm. "It's not what it looks like," he finally said, but his eyes betrayed him. He knew the truth had been exposed. "Not what it looks like?" I repeated. "Daniel, I saw the messages. I have the note. Don't lie to me. Who is Eli?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. The casual confidence he usually carried was gone, replaced by something fragile, fearful. "It's complicated," he said. "You wouldn't understand." I felt my anger rising, along with the fear. "Try me. I deserve the truth." He hesitated, then finally admitted, "Eli, it's a relationship. I didn't want you to find out like this. I didn't know how to tell you." Everything I thought I knew about him, about us, about my life, seemed to collapse in that moment. I couldn't breathe. I felt betrayed, humiliated, angry, and terrified all at once. My hands shook, my vision swam, but I forced myself to stay calm because panicking wouldn't solve anything. I needed more answers. Over the next days, I started noticing patterns I had missed for years. A subtle text he would delete when I walked into the room. Phone calls that ended abruptly. A smile for me, a secret smile for someone else. I realized that I had been living alongside this hidden life without even knowing it. It wasn't just the messages or the note. It was the way he interacted with me now, the way he tried to maintain normalcy, like nothing had changed. That false calm made everything worse. It was a mask that concealed the fracture that had been growing beneath the surface for months, maybe years. I began to ask myself questions I didn't want to face. Had I ignored the warning signs? Was I too trusting, too blind? Or had he been that careful, that meticulous, that cruel? One night, I stayed awake long after he had fallen asleep, scrolling through old conversations, piecing together the moments he had hidden from me. There were little slips, moments of truth disguised as casual remarks, indications that this wasn't a one-time thing. The pattern was consistent, deliberate, and terrifying. By the time the sun rose, I realized something that both scared and empowered me. I had the power now. I knew the truth. I had evidence. I could confront him, expose him, or even turn the tables. But I also knew that the next step had to be careful. One wrong move and everything could collapse, including my own sense of control. I spent that morning preparing. Notes, screenshots, a mental map of everything I had discovered. I knew exactly what I wanted to say, and I knew how I wanted to see him react. Not just words, actions, emotions, truth. I couldn't rely on his explanations anymore. I had to force the situation, but carefully. And yet, a part of me still hoped I was wrong. A small, foolish part wanted to believe there was a simple explanation, a misunderstanding, some innocent mistake. But deep down, I knew the truth. Daniel had been living a secret life, and I had just uncovered the first layer. That night, I prepared for confrontation. Not with anger, though there was plenty of it, but with control, with evidence, with patience. I was ready to see how far this web of lies went and how deeply I had been deceived. Because one thing was certain. After seeing the messages and the note, after uncovering the subtle traces of his double life, nothing would ever be the same again. I wasn't the same. And Daniel would soon learn that I had changed too. The days that followed felt like walking on a tightrope stretched over an endless chasm. Every glance, every word, every movement between Daniel and me was charged with unspoken tension. He knew something was wrong. How could he not? I had changed. My laughter was sharper, my smiles colder, my silences louder. And yet, he tried to maintain the illusion of normalcy, carefully avoiding the moments that might reveal his fear. I, on the other hand, was meticulously preparing. This wasn't about revenge, not yet. This was about control, about forcing the truth into daylight where it could no longer hide behind polite smiles, evasive gestures, or empty promises. I needed him to see that I knew everything, to watch him squirm under the weight of his own lies, and only then would I decide what to do. I started with a mental map. Each lie, each hidden message, each unexplained absence was a node in a network I had painstakingly reconstructed. I traced them back to their origin, noting the subtle cues I had ignored, the minor inconsistencies I had dismissed as trivial. Every deleted message, every whispered phone call, every last-minute excuse became ammunition. But observation alone wasn't enough. I needed confrontation points. I wrote them down, rehearsed them silently, and memorized the order of revelation. Timing was critical. Too soon, and he could fabricate another story. Too late, and I might lose the upper hand, letting guilt or fear cloud the evidence I had gathered. I also began gathering physical evidence. Screenshots of the messages, the note I had found carefully preserved in a drawer, a timeline of his disappearances, his strange behaviors, everything organized in neat digital folders. Each piece reinforced the narrative I already knew to be true. Daniel had been living a secret life, and Eli had been part of it. Evenings became rehearsals. I would sit in the living room with my laptop open, speaking my lines aloud as if practicing for a performance. Explain the messages. Why did you lie? Who is Eli, really? The words felt unnatural at first, but soon they took shape, sharper, more precise, more deadly. I was preparing for a confrontation, yes, but also for the calm, controlled detachment I would need when he tried to manipulate me. The next step was testing his reactions. I started with small questions. Casual inquiries about work, vague comments about his phone usage, subtle mentions of Eli in conversation. I watched him closely. His eyes flickered. His posture stiffened. His responses were clipped, overly precise. I noted each reaction meticulously, as if reading the playbook of a man who had rehearsed lies for years. One evening, I set the stage for what I knew would be the real confrontation. Daniel had returned home after work, tired, distracted, unaware that I had been observing him all day. I waited until he sat down at the dining table, laptop open, coffee untouched. I leaned against the counter, pretending to organize a few dishes, pretending to care about trivial household chores while listening, waiting, measuring. Then I let the first trap fall. "Daniel," I said casually, tilting my head as if nothing unusual were happening. "Do you think someone could hide a secret life in plain sight?" His head snapped toward me, the casual mask cracking for the briefest moment. "What do you mean?" he asked, trying to sound innocent. I walked over slowly, each step deliberate. "I mean, messages, notes, things people say to each other when they think no one is watching. Do you think someone could do that without anyone noticing?" He swallowed hard, his eyes darting to the laptop, then to the counter, then back to me. The tension in the room thickened. I could almost hear it pressing against my ears, against my chest, a palpable force. I don't know what you're talking about," he said finally, voice low and strained. I smiled faintly, a cold, controlled smile that made him flinch. "Oh, I think you do, and I think it's time we talked about it." He leaned back, defensive now, crossing his arms. I noticed the slight trembling of his hands. He was nervous, afraid, and he had every reason to be. I took a seat opposite him, placing the note on the table. The paper looked innocuous, innocent even, but I knew its weight. It carried months of deception, hidden affection, secret meetings. It was proof, and now it was a weapon. "Explain this," I said calmly. "Who is Eli, Daniel? And don't give me the work excuse." He hesitated, long enough for me to know that whatever story he had planned, it wasn't working anymore. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. I watched the panic rise in his eyes, the slight furrow of his brow, the shallow breaths, the rapid blinking. It's complicated," he finally admitted, voice quivering. I didn't want to hurt you. I never wanted this to happen. Complicated? I echoed. You think lying, deceiving, keeping a secret life from me is complicated? You think that justifies months of hiding the truth? He swallowed hard. I didn't know how to tell you. I wanted to end it, but I couldn't. I thought it would be easier if you never found out. Easier? I repeated, anger simmering beneath the surface. Do you realize what you've done? Do you understand the betrayal? The trust you've destroyed? He nodded slowly, guilt weighing heavily on his shoulders. I do. I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I leaned closer, my voice dropping to a cold whisper. Then tell me everything, from the beginning. Every lie, every meeting, every word. I want the truth, and I want it now. His eyes widened, panic overtaking him. He opened his mouth, closed it, then finally started speaking. His confession was slow, halting, filled with stutters and pauses, but the facts spilled out eventually. Every secret meeting, every hidden message, every deceitful word laid bare in the harsh light of our living room. I listened, cataloging each detail, feeling a mixture of rage and relief. Rage at his betrayal, relief that I finally knew the full extent of the deception. And yet, beneath it all, there was a strange clarity. I could finally see the entire picture, understand the web he had woven, and prepare for the next step deciding what to do with the man I thought I knew. By the time he finished, I was exhausted, my mind spinning, my emotions raw. But one thing was certain. The confrontation had succeeded. He had revealed everything. He was exposed, vulnerable, and entirely at my mercy. I leaned back, taking a deep breath. You've told me everything, I said quietly. But now, Daniel, it's my turn to decide what happens next. And in that moment, the power shifted. The tightrope I had been walking was no longer one-sided. I had control, I had evidence, I had the truth. And Daniel would soon learn that uncovering a secret life wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning. If you want, I can continue with Chapter 4, 1,000 words next, the final chapter where the truth fully explodes and the story reaches its emotional climax. The days after discovering Daniel's messages were unbearable, yet oddly electrifying. Every moment was charged with silent tension. I could feel him watching me sometimes, sensing the shift in my behavior, but not knowing the full extent of what I had uncovered. Our apartment, once a place of comfort, had become a battleground of unspoken words, hidden truths, and calculated observations. I spent hours replaying that moment in my mind, the message from Eli, the note in the coat pocket, Daniel's panicked expression. Each time I visualized it, my resolve grew stronger. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was strategic. The truth had been revealed, and I was going to make sure he realized the consequences of every lie. I began by observing him meticulously. Every gesture, every glance, every casual movement became a potential clue. How often did he check his phone? How did he react when I entered a room unexpectedly? Were there tiny inconsistencies in his stories about work? I cataloged everything, creating a mental timeline of his deceit. It was exhausting, yet oddly satisfying. I could feel the scales of power shifting. For the first time since discovering the messages, I was in control. Next, I focused on gathering concrete evidence. Screenshots of the messages, a photograph of the note, even a list of his strange absences and inconsistencies. I kept everything organized and accessible. This wasn't just about confronting him verbally. It was about having undeniable proof that he couldn't manipulate or charm his way out of. I had to be certain that nothing could derail the confrontation I was planning. Preparation wasn't only logistical, it was psychological. I rehearsed my questions, my statements, the tone I would use. Every sentence was deliberate. Explain this. Who is Eli? Why did you hide this from me? I repeated them aloud, envisioning his reactions, imagining the panic, the hesitation, the guilt. The rehearsal was exhausting, but it made me feel stronger, more in control, ready to handle whatever he threw at me. I also observed the small signs, the cracks in his composure that I hadn't noticed before, the way he avoided my gaze when I mentioned work calls, the slight flush in his cheeks when a notification appeared, the abrupt changes in his tone when I entered the room unexpectedly. These weren't mistakes. They were patterns of someone hiding something significant. And I had finally seen the full picture. One evening, I decided it was time to escalate. Daniel had come home from work, tired but unsuspecting. He was hunched over his laptop at the dining table, typing furiously, seemingly absorbed in his work. I leaned against the counter, pretending to be busy with the dishes while carefully observing him. The apartment was quiet, every noise amplified in the tension-filled room. I let the first probe fall casually. "Daniel," I said, tilting my head as if it were a neutral remark, "do you think someone could hide a secret life in plain sight?" He froze for a split second, then turned to me, trying to mask his reaction. "What do you mean?" he asked, voice careful, measured. I walked toward him slowly, deliberately, my eyes locked on his. "I mean messages, notes, things people say when they think no one is watching. Do you think someone could do that without anyone noticing?" His posture stiffened, a defensive instinct kicking in. His eyes flicked to his laptop, then to me, then back to the screen. The tension between us was almost physical, pressing against the air in the room. I don't know what you're talking about," he finally said, voice low. But the slight tremor betrayed him. I smiled faintly, deliberately cold. "Oh, I think you do, and I think it's time we talk about it." He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms in a defensive posture, but his hands trembled slightly, betraying his fear. I took a deep breath and sat down across from him, placing the folded note from his coat pocket on the table. "Explain this," I said evenly. "Who is Eli, Daniel? And don't tell me it's work. I want the truth." His eyes widened. He swallowed, visibly shaken. He opened his mouth, closed it, then finally began speaking, carefully choosing his words. "It's complicated," he admitted. "I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't know how to tell you." "Complicated," I repeated, anger simmering beneath the surface. "Do you understand what you've done? Months of deception. Every lie, every hidden meeting, every message you deleted before I could see it?" He swallowed again, his face pale. I thought it would be easier if you never found out. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I leaned closer, my voice dropping to a quiet but cutting edge. "Easier? For you? Do you realize how that feels? Do you understand the betrayal, the trust you've destroyed?" His hands fidgeted in his lap. His eyes avoided mine. I could see the fear, the guilt, the desperate attempt to hold on to whatever control he thought he had. But I had the upper hand now. The evidence was on the table. His lies were exposed. I let him squirm for a moment, just long enough to see the weight of the situation settle on him. Then I spoke again, calmer this time, but no less sharp. "Tell me everything, from the beginning. Every meeting, every message, every interaction you've had with Eli. I want the truth, Daniel, and I want it now." He hesitated, then began. His confession was slow, halting, full of stutters and excuses. He admitted to the secret meetings, the messages, the little lies designed to keep me in the dark. Each word he spoke was a confirmation of what I had suspected, and each pause was a reflection of the guilt he carried. I listened silently, cataloging every detail. My anger simmered beneath the surface, but I kept it in check. I needed him to feel exposed, vulnerable, fully aware of the damage he had caused. The more he spoke, the more powerless he became, and I felt a strange sense of clarity amidst the chaos. By the time he finished, the room was thick with silence. The weight of the truth hung between us, heavy and undeniable. I had finally seen the full extent of his betrayal. I had evidence, a confession, and the power to decide what would come next. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. "You've told me everything," I said quietly. "Now, Daniel, it's my turn. It's time I decide what happens next." For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of calm. I had planned, prepared, and executed the first phase of the confrontation. The truth was out, and the power had shifted. Daniel was vulnerable, exposed, and entirely at my mercy. And in that moment, I realized something crucial. Uncovering a secret life was not the end. It was only the beginning. The next steps, deciding whether to forgive, to punish, or to walk away, would define everything. And I intended to face them with the same precision, control, and determination that had guided me through this storm of deceit. The night was heavy, suffused with the tension of everything that had come before. Our apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a courtroom. I had the evidence, the confession, and a clarity I hadn't felt since discovering the first message. Daniel sat across from me, slouched in defeat, his face pale, eyes darting nervously. I could feel the power shift between us, a quiet, undeniable shift. The silence stretched for a long moment. Then I spoke, my voice calm but resolute. Daniel, I've heard everything. I know everything. And now it's time to face the consequences. He swallowed hard, finally meeting my gaze. I understand, he stammered. I deserve whatever you think is right. I leaned back, folding my arms. Right isn't the issue. Truth is. And that truth, once hidden, carefully tucked away behind casual smiles, tiny lies, and erased messages, now had the entire weight of our relationship behind it. Every word, every secret, every betrayal bore down on him. I could see him shiver as the magnitude of his actions hit him fully. Do you understand what you've done? I asked, my tone sharp. Do you understand the trust you destroyed? Not just the trust, Daniel, the foundation of everything we built together. He nodded slowly, tears welling in his eyes. I know, he whispered. I thought I could manage it. I thought it wouldn't hurt you. Or maybe I thought it would never be found out. I was wrong. I see that now. I see everything. I didn't speak immediately. Instead, I let him feel the silence. I let him sink into the gravity of his own mistakes. My heart pounded, not just with anger, but with the strange clarity that comes when someone finally confronts the truth. For months, I had been collecting evidence, observing, preparing. Now everything converged in this moment. You said Eli was complicated, I said finally, breaking the silence. Explain that, because right now all I see is deception. Months of secret messages, hidden meetings, lies. Complicated doesn't even begin to describe it. His face crumpled. It was emotional, he admitted. It wasn't physical, at least, not in the way you're thinking, but it was intimate. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I could stop it before it went too far. I wasn't thinking about anything else, but just keeping the connection alive. I felt my stomach twist. Intimate. Alive. Not physical, he said. But emotional betrayal cuts deeper than flesh ever could. Every shared laugh, every whispered word behind my back, every carefully hidden confession was now a wound I could feel in my chest. You lied to me, I said quietly, letting the words hang. Every day, every interaction, every time I thought we were sharing a life, you were hiding another one. And now, after all of that, you expect me to just listen to your explanations? I don't expect anything, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I want you to know the truth. I want you to see it. I want you to decide. I leaned forward, placing the note, the screenshots, and my timeline in front of him. Here, I said. This is the truth, Daniel. Not words, not excuses. This is everything. Every hidden action, every lie, every betrayal. He glanced at the evidence, his eyes widening with recognition and guilt. I can't deny it, he said softly. It's all there. Yes, I said, all there. And now you have to understand what it feels like to be powerless, to have the person you thought loved you in control of the outcome. Because that's what you did to me every single day. For a long moment, he remained silent, staring at the table. Then he looked up, eyes red, voice shaking. I don't know if you can forgive me, he said. I don't know if you should. I studied him. The man I had loved, the man I had trusted, the man I had shared my life with. He was broken now. stripped of the false security his lies had provided. And yet, I wasn't certain what my next step should be. Part of me wanted to walk away, to leave him to the consequences of his own choices. Part of me still loved him, still remembered the man before the lies, before the messages, before Eli. I don't know if I can forgive you either, I said honestly, but I do know this. You've lost control. You've lost the ability to manipulate, to hide, to evade. And that is where we start. He nodded, swallowing hard. I understand, he whispered. I will accept whatever you decide. The room was silent again, heavy with the weight of our choices. I felt tears prick my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Instead, I took a deep breath and made my decision. Daniel, I said finally, we are at a break point, and at this break point, everything changes. Nothing will ever be the same. Not our marriage, not our trust, not the way we see each other. From this moment, it's about rebuilding or walking away. He nodded slowly, tears now streaming freely down his face. I deserve that, he said. I've earned nothing else. And then I delivered the part of the confrontation that was perhaps the hardest, the truth of my own heart. I am hurt, I said quietly, more than I can express. But I am also clear. I have power now. I have knowledge. And that knowledge allows me to decide whether to forgive, to punish, or to walk away. You have handed me that choice. He nodded again, the weight of my words pressing on him. I accept it, he whispered. Whatever you choose, it is deserved. I took a moment to breathe, to center myself, to understand the gravity of the moment. For months, I had felt powerless, blind, manipulated. But now I had clarity. I had evidence. I had control. And that control gave me the strength to face what was coming next. You've learned your lesson, I said finally, voice steady. And I hope, truly, that you will never forget it. Because betrayal is not easily forgiven, and lies have consequences. But now, we will see what kind of life we can salvage, or whether it's time to let go entirely. The finality of the words hung in the room. Daniel's face, once confident, once assured, now reflected only remorse, fear, and the dawning comprehension of the consequences he had brought upon himself. The man I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone humbled, exposed, vulnerable. And I realized that in this moment, I was not just confronting him. I was confronting the very nature of trust, betrayal, and power in our relationship. For the first time since discovering the messages, I felt a strange sense of calm. The storm had reached its climax. The confrontation had been executed, the truths revealed, and the consequences laid bare. What remained was the decision, the choice to forgive, to rebuild, to punish, or to walk away entirely. And in that moment, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. The truth had changed everything. The air in the apartment seemed to shift, lighter, somehow clearer. The lies, the secrets, the hidden lives, they were all exposed now. And in the quiet aftermath, I realized that life would never be simple again. But at least now, it was real. The break point had come, and at the break point, everything changed.